All right. Welcome everybody to this episode 84 of the Navigating Now virtual roundtable series. As always, I'm Anthony Ewing from Thoughtium, and I am joined today by a very special guest who we will introduce in just a moment. But I want to first welcome all of our communities back to the Thursday afternoon table. We had a special Tuesday morning episode earlier with Matt Samaglia. Just an incredible conversation earlier this week. You know, we continue to elevate the discussion in our community that is growing day by day. And the discussion is all about those topics and those decisions that we're making as business leaders on a day-to-day basis that matter most. And that is why we go live. We want this information to come to you raw and unscripted. We want to bring great leaders to the table, have really good discussions, and we'd love for you to be a part of it. So all of our episodes can be watched both recorded and live at thoughttium.com/live. We want to thank our YouTube community, Facebook community, and especially our LinkedIn community. We're very fortunate to be going live to LinkedIn every Thursday afternoon. And so, you know, we just really appreciate those folks who, stop us in our tracks or send us a quick comment and say, hey, you know, I saw the last episode in the feed and I paused and I maybe got a couple things out of it. That is really the value that we want to bring everybody, just those 1% to 2% improvements in the way that you think and act as a leader. And today we've got a specialist in these 1% to 2% improvements, also just a dear friend of the Thoughtium community, Michaela Belle, who is a learning experience designer. She is an organizer and leader of communities. About 10 minutes ago, she just described herself as a professional pivoter, which I think is an incredible title to hold. And it says that you definitely have your hands in a couple different things. But Michaela comes to us again to the table to talk more about the way that we are designing and delivering great learning and development experiences. And one of the things I love about bringing leaders like Michaela to the table is that, you know, we get to go really deep about, you know, topics that matter most in very specific areas. And I put this term up here, Michaela, particularly for this episode, knowing that you were on the episode, because there's very few people in my world that I can call a true practitioner of their craft. And I mean this, and you're one of them. You know, you talk about the ability to go deep. You talk about treating your work like an art or a discipline. Welcome to the show, Michaela, the pivoter, the designer, the practitioner. Thank you so much for joining.
Wow, what an introduction, Anthony. It's such an honor always. I love all of our conversations, whether they're live or over the phone or
in
on a
real
podcast
life.
or in real life. Yes, we always have the best conversations. And so I'm excited to be at the table, and I hope that we get to add some value, or hopefully a lot of value, to anybody who's watching or listening.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm going to keep this up here because I want to ask you, Michaela, as you look at this definition, practitioner, we use the term practitionership a lot, and we challenge a lot of our community and our clients to define, what is your practitionership? You know, what is the work that you just love to do on a day-to-day basis? Because we all know we get up and there's a lot of things that we do to make sure that we maintain, to make sure that we support our friends and family. But what is that segment of work that you just absolutely lights you up, that you almost see as an art form or a discipline in your world?
You know, I love to curate safe environments for people. So whether that environment is an online course or an in-person event, or a podcast or anything, the thing that I love to practice more than anything is being a cultivator of places that allow people to be vulnerable, especially in today's day and age.
Yeah, I love that. And where do you think you got that from?
Oh, that's a great question. I think so. My mom is an artist. She's a creative for sure. And like growing up, she used to always, whenever she would give somebody a gift, she would, the bows that this woman created and like her attention to detail was just epic. And so, you know, she loved giving people things, like gifting people with things, but she also really enjoyed how they reacted to it.
Mm.
And yeah, and even my mom, when she would go grocery shopping, she would always make sure that she would notice things about other people and compliment them. And as a kid, I noticed how people reacted to genuine compliments, or just gifting somebody with something like, oh wow, she took the time, like I feel seen.
Mhm.
Right. And I
Mhm.
remember noticing how people reacted when they felt seen.
That is so interesting. And as a child, that's got to be really, really important, right?
Mm-hmm.
To see that in your parents, to see that example in your
Mm-hmm.
parents. And it's amazing how some of these things come up, and it's either it becomes, those behaviors become your leading behaviors or your leading values. It
Yeah.
becomes almost a style that you bring, whether it's to wrapping gifts or potentially to curating great experiences. And as you get older, and we're not getting younger, you start to draw those connections, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it almost brings you closer then to your mom in this case.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I've never really thought about that. Thank you for that question.
It's funny. It's how Oprah's got like one or two or three things that she does no matter what, like in
Yep.
her, in her style. And I like, there's part of me that thinks that that's kind of annoying because it's like very templated, and it's just like,
Yep.
okay, here's the point at the end where she's going to make him or her cry. And here's the point where she's going to take like that punchline that they said and make it hers. And then the credits are going to roll. Um, as someone who's now done, 80 plus of these episodes, you do start to like call on, just certain aspects of your facilitation that really work.
Yep. Yep.
Or that really just like open the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned in 80 plus episodes that if within the first 5 or 10 minutes of a discussion like this, if you can go back and forth a little bit about some stories or your past
Mm-hmm.
or your childhood, it like really opens possibility. And
Mm,
so that's just an interesting theme that we've brought, or at least I've
good.
brought to most of these episodes. So
That's
thank you
good.
for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So last time we had you on the show, you were really deep in your practitionership, and that was
Mm-hmm.
really focused on the adult learning experience. And I know that that's a fairly broad term, but for those folks in the learning and development or L&D space, that will come very familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Michaela, I know that you also build, communities of learning and development outside of the corporate space.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the things that I just think is so unique about your value proposition and your brand and your business, is that it really, really blurs the line between the way that we learn and develop as professionals and the way that we learn and develop as humans. And
Yeah.
I'm curious, what type of work are you doing in both of those spaces today? Tell us what you're up to.
What I'm up to. So I have a couple different online courses, and they mostly do focus on personal development, everything from emotional intelligence, relational intelligence, spiritual intelligence. It's really looking at the person as a whole and kind of saying all these different areas affect everything else. How you see you, it really matters. Like if I don't see me right, I'm not going to choose right. I'm not going to choose the
Mm.
right friends, the right partner, the right purpose. So I have found that when you work on you, and you sharpen your own emotional intelligence, you develop within your own self-awareness, it naturally flows into every area of
Mm.
your life, including, and I think especially in work. So as my self-awareness went up, so did my income. Literally, it like followed that. And so if you ever feel as though you're stuck somewhere at a certain income level, or even relationally you feel stuck, sometimes it's just a matter of we got to look in the mirror and
Mm.
say, how can I grow internally? Because a lot of us, it's been a while since we've asked that question.
Oh,
So
that pause, that pregnant pause. I love that.
I know I'm just giving you a
You've
moment.
done that before. You've done that before.
Yeah.
That was your Oprah technique right there, that pregnant pause, where like we all literally stepped out of our bodies and looked back at ourselves and said, how much are we actually taking a look in the mirror? Thank you for that.
Mm, you're welcome. You're welcome. But yeah, so I feel like right now just having some courses and doing things along the lines of personal development, but also being able to consult for other people and help them look at their programs or look at their products and their services and say, how can we level up? Because I think that we all have amazing services, products, and it's no longer good enough to just have a good service or a good product. Now there are additional things that we have to look at. One of my things is aesthetics intelligence within companies. So
Ooh.
what does that look like? How do people feel in the environment of your services? Like really appealing to the senses. So aesthetics is kind of my thing.
That is so cool. I mean, I feel like this 30-minute episode just became 2.5 hours. Listen, there's no time limit. I don't think there's a time limit to how long we can go live, but like, I really, really want to touch on this because it's actually a term I've never heard of, in aesthetics intelligence. What I'm hearing is it's your ability, your intelligence, your understanding of calling on the senses.
Yes.
To design and deliver great experiences.
Yes. I want you to think about it this way. You're in a restaurant right now and you are having the best steak of your life. If you're a vegan, think about it as like, I don't know, cauliflower steak.
Cauliflower steak.
It is absolutely incredible. It is cooked to perfection. It is tender. It melts in your mouth. It is seasoned to perfection. Now imagine that you're cutting it with a plastic knife and it was served to you on a paper plate and you're sitting in a foldable chair.
Yeah.
And your waiter served it to you in ripped jeans and a crop top, right? When you leave that restaurant, are you going to talk about the steak or are you talking about the environment? And, I think a lot of people are forgetting the aesthetics of what's around their service or programs that really matters. Because if you walk into a restaurant and it is just aesthetically pleasing, right? And the lighting it's creating the ambiance, right? Like everything about the restaurant decor is on point. You leave the restaurant talking about the steak. And so what I think aesthetics does is it helps your, whatever it is that you have that you want to shine, it allows it to shine. Because when you don't have good aesthetics, it's distracting.
Oh, that's so great. It almost is counter to, this concept of like style over substance. This was something, it's funny growing up. This was a term my dad used a lot because I was one for the aesthetics. Like I really wanted, and I got this from, family members, et cetera. Like I really wanted things to be positioned and look in a way that like would invite people in. And oftentimes that meant spending a little bit more time on the look and feel. And I would hear this term from my dad, style over substance, which, he's got a point. Oftentimes, if you focus too much on the style and not enough on the steak in this case, that's also a mismatch. So it's like, you got to have the steak, but you're saying you also have to have the ambiance.
Yeah.
And particularly when it comes to development and development experiences, oftentimes, let's say the content is really good, but the way people engage with it, the environment and the space that we create for that content to live and breathe and assimilate and for people to interact with it in a way that they make it personal, that environment is lacking. Is that essentially what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying I think sometimes we get so good at what we're good at that we forget to create the environment around it that will allow it to really shine. And a lot of times that's sometimes bringing in a team, right? That guy who the chef that made the steak, he's not necessarily the one picking out the decor or deciding the lighting of the restaurant, right? It's a team. And that's what, collective wisdom is everything. And creating that community around you and having a really strong team is so important. But when you're a solopreneur, your main job is, you focus on the steak. Some of that will come. But yeah, like there's so many different variations of that, or different areas in your business, or timelines in your business. But I think people that are focusing on aesthetics right now are going to be the ones that are winning in the world that we live in today, especially from like a digital perspective.
Yep. It's really important, I think, to clarify that aesthetics is not just look and feel, right? Like you said it earlier, it's all five senses. I think there's even more than five senses, and I might even want to add one when it comes to particularly learning and development experiences, or any type of experience that you're going to have in community with others. Aesthetics also includes like the way that you feel walking in.
Yes.
The way that your heart feels when you're in a group of other people sharing and working together to kind of increase your knowledge and your understanding. The safety, the sense of safety that you have to try and to fail. All of those things are part of the senses that you talk about. And I do agree that particularly over the last few years, as things have become more digital, I'd say the collective bar for lack of a better term, production quality, or even design aesthetics has maybe gone down a bit, right? And so because over the last few years, and I think there's a lot of really positive side effects to that. The last few years, people have really gotten comfortable just kind of going raw and going live and not necessarily thinking necessarily about the environment. We have benefited from that. I was telling you before the show that we're so thrilled that, this doesn't need to be a highly produced, highly curated segment that we do every Thursday. But when it comes to great learning and development experiences, I do think there's a premium now on those highly curated experiences. Anybody can watch YouTube clips. Anybody can go to /live and watch this. But some of the experiences that you're after, and I know we're after at Thoughttium, are a little bit elevated. And I think there's a premium on now that elevated feeling, because most people are maybe just like, kind of stuck in Zoom world.
Yeah. And I think elevation has actually become not like going back to old things, but the thing I'm thinking about right now, for example, one of my courses, it includes this workbook. And to be able to, like, when somebody takes a course and they get their box in the mail, right? This is kind of old school paper, old school, but they feel something when they get this book. Like, they feel the love and the care that is in the details. And so some of what is a premium now is, think about what people are not getting and what people are craving. And some of that is like, I don't know, like an old school workbook, or even like we were talking before the show, the people right now that we want to be in one another's physical space. And so events definitely are things that people are craving right now. Old school classroom style things are kind of coming back around. So just really thinking about, what is everybody doing? What are people craving? Because this is all that we're doing. And how can we do some of that? And that's what ends up elevating.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I'll just double down on, how quickly we have seen, particularly with our clients, the market go from, hey, we've got to flip everything to virtual. And we've got to really think about like the future of kind of this hybrid world that we're going to live in. And I mean, we Thoughttium, for example, like we really, really worked with our clients over the last 2 years to understand what of those offerings could be intentionally, made into more of a virtual experience, and what still need to be reserved for, a time when we can come back together. Or how do you create the right balance between the two? And how quickly we've moved to a world where there is a real premium on face-to-face. We've had, large clients that have gone to a permanent virtual first structure or a permanent hybrid structure. And the only investments that they're making face to face are not daily, because there's no office, there's no headquarters. It's quarterly or it's annually, bringing people together. And so, and these were quarterly or annual meetings that they were having in the first place. Now they're having them, and these experiences are at such a premium. You know, the investment is far more important, and oftentimes far greater, right? Because they want to make sure that when we bring people together, it is not just your typical sage on stage kind of slide dump. People come in, a couple great dinners, have some fun, you know, maybe an escape room or something like that, and everybody goes home.
Yeah.
We're now, I mean, we have clients that are now coming to us saying, like, we have 48 hours with these 12 leaders, and they haven't been together in a year and a half.
Yeah.
It's like that responsibility as a designer is far greater today than it ever was a year and a half ago.
Yes.
So, you know, I want to talk a little bit about, you know, some of the kind of traditional versus non-traditional methodologies that you're thinking about as we kind of move forward here. Is your work and the workshops that you build and the experiences that you design, is it still a good blend of both?
Yeah, for sure. And I think the beautiful thing about everything that happened with the pandemic and a lot of shifts that had to be made to this virtually almost exclusive world is we were forced to learn kind of how to do a lot of this. And one of the things that I'm doing is I am starting to incorporate in-person workshops and conferences and events again. But what I will be doing is they're all being professionally filmed, so that I will be able to take those and create online programs and services and be able to sell those things as well. So I think what it has allowed us to do is to figure out how we can do both, and still have that in person, however your business is structured, but how can you also be creative and utilize that time well, especially when it comes to video, audio. How many podcasts can we create out of this? How much content can we pull from this? So you're utilizing your time both ways.
I love that. You know, we are saying more and more now, do both when it comes to these events, but don't do both at the same time. And I think you just hit the nail on the head. Like you have in-person experiences, but you don't have 14 laptops on tripods with people that are zooming in, right? And we have a lot of our client organizations that are trying to make that work, understandably so. Where we have an in-person experience, it might be a 3-day workshop. You know, they want to make it highly interactive. You know, they want to have tangible and analog field guides. They want to have physical breakouts. They want to have, you know, reflect and connect sessions in between. But, oh, by the way, you know, we have a virtual sales team, or, you know, a team overseas that would like to join virtually. And of course, the last few years, like, everybody's gotten a lot more comfortable with jumping on Zoom, but it's almost like created this, like this over expectation that everything is mixed. And so we're telling a lot of our clients, like, really invest in that in person.
Yeah.
Really invest in the virtual, but don't do both at the same time. And I think your point, your tip is a really good one. Like, create a great in-person 2 or 3 day workshop, but then spend some dough actually filming it in a way that would be great behind a screen, almost like a master's class.
Exactly. Because then you're able to, it's like doing one thing well, or that concept of, if you chase too many rabbits, you won't catch any of them. So like, if you do that in person one and you do it with excellence, and people know that you're there and you're present, you're not like speaking to multiple screens, like they feel you there. And then 2, with the filming aspect of it, it looks clean. It's not Zoom. So I think you can charge a premium when it looks a certain way, right? I think that's just where my mind goes from even from a production standpoint. I think that's the best way to go about it.
I love that. So we talked a lot about delivery and format and things of that nature. And I'm sure our learning and development professionals out there really appreciate this level of depth and practitionership in detail. This is the stuff I could talk about all day, every day.
Yeah.
But I want to on the content, because you opened the conversation and talked about how it wasn't really until you personally established a deeper sense of your own awareness, your self-awareness, that your career started to skyrocket. And, I think we can all agree that the last few years have really challenged organizations, small and large, to bring in these concepts and these personal development tools, such as situational intelligence, EQ. We're doing a lot of work on authenticity and resilience, these topics that have been so popular over the course of the last 10 years, but there's been such a separation between church and state. Like, I would go and read Brene Brown and watch her TED Talks, but it would be completely separate from the discussions that I was having in the boardroom. And maybe I was, referencing her work or sending a link out, but now we're developing entire curriculums around this, and we're bringing these topics into the workplace in a way that folks really feel like this is an investment in who they are as a person, and organizations are realizing that it in turn increases productivity, ROI, engagement, happiness, all of the things. So, and I know you've kind of been at this intersection of personal and professional development. Like, where do you see this going? Do you see us continuing to go further and further into some of these new required skills, if you will, in the professional world?
I hope to see it continue and to grow and to even, be more integrated, because I think people are starting to really understand that somebody's emotional health and their mental health, it really does affect work. Like, I remember I think we've talked about this before, but my bachelor's degree is in American Sign Language interpretation. And so I was a sign language interpreter. And one of the things—
didn't know that.
Oh, you didn't?
That's a really fun fact. I did not.
Yeah, it's a random fact. But one of my things was when I was at work, like I was never allowed to interject any of my personal opinion. I was just there to be a bridge of communication. And I think a lot of times especially years and years ago, was, leave your stuff at home. Yes. Like, leave your problems at home. If you had a bad day, you got to put the face on. And years of that, you begin to lose yourself. And I think that it just wears away at a person. So I hope to see it continue and to continue to grow, because it really is so important. And I was telling you, I still can't remember his name. It starts with an M. It's like Michael Hyatt. So his company, he changed their work day to 9 to 3. So as long as you got your work done, you can leave the office at 3. So parents are able to pick their kids up from school and, be able to give them snacks after school and have conversations, and their productivity went up 40% in the company. And I really do believe so much of it has to do with your mental health, because the sun is still out and you're able to maybe even do some activities or go to the gym, or it allows you to have a more balanced life. So yeah, I really hope to see this continue.
Yeah. Where we've seen kind of this whole progression over the last few years, really started at the doorstep of the pandemic. We work with a lot of organizations that have field sales teams, outside sales folks. And there was a bit of this moment where our clients really identified and realized that they've got a grounded team of hundreds, sometimes thousands of folks out there that are not able to get out and do their business on a day-to-day basis. And we, the collective learning and development industry, loved it, because all of these organizations turned to learning and development and said, how can we continue to engage and support and grow skills in these folks while they might be doing more virtual calls at home, or while they might have a little bit more of the headspace to develop some of these future skills for a world where they may not be out in the field permanently. And the work that we brought in, and the content and the theory that we brought in had to do with a deeper sense of yourself, a stronger other orientation, being able to really read and understand emotions from both yourself and others.
Yep.
We did a lot of training on agility and resilience and influence. And that quickly made its way into not just the vernacular of our clients, but it was a real skill set that our clients were building in order to prepare themselves for this hybrid world. Fast forward now 3 years, and it's really, really exciting. And it's not just the work we're doing. I think it's across the industry. There's been so much work in this space, in the EQ, resilience, and vulnerability, authenticity space, that we're now starting to see organizations, identify these skills as almost prerequisites.
Yes.
So it's like now it's the entire foundation of a sales training program. Now it's the required skills prior to layering on things like a selling model or account management skills. And we couldn't be more thrilled, because it's such a better way of bringing people into an organization and a more meaningful way of investing in your people.
Yeah. And I think it sends a message of the importance of it, because, I think a lot of us too grew up in a generation where we were taught to suppress our emotions. And I think it was on social media, I was talking about emotional intelligence. And before you can be emotionally intelligent, you have to be emotionally literate, which simply means that if I say, Anthony, how are you feeling? You have an answer that's actually a feeling. Because what happens is a lot of us don't even know what we're feeling, because we've been told to suppress those feelings for so many years. And it's why, even culturally, a lot of times men struggle with emotional intelligence, because, boys don't cry. And that was the message as a young boy. And, so people like learning how to get in touch with your feelings. It's not like a touchy feely thing. It's just it's part of the human experience. Like we have all of these emotions for a reason, and they're beautiful and they add so much value to us. But before you can be emotionally intelligent, you first have to be emotionally literate and actually even know what you're feeling. But all this education is so necessary, to the workforce, and leading your people well. In order, you can only lead others to the level that you lead yourself. So that's why that self-awareness and that skill is so important.
Yeah, I love that. So I guess to try to kind of put a bow on this, we went really deep, really quick, and that's absolutely the way that I like to roll, particularly with folks like yourself, Michaela. So again, thank you so much for joining. There were two terms that like really came through today for me, and it's interesting because it's both the aesthetic intelligence and the emotional intelligence. I like that you used emotional literacy, but we'll say aesthetic and emotional intelligence. Let's share maybe like what are one or two things that people can do to develop more of a sense of aesthetic intelligence?
Yeah, I think the first thing that's coming to my mind is whether, depending on your business, but thinking about, okay, what is the stake in my business, and what potentially is the plastic knife and the paper plate? Like, what is it in my business that I could potentially elevate? If I elevated it, it would elevate the experience of the stake. And starting there, because sometimes, how an overwhelmed mind does nothing. And so we think about, oh gosh, aesthetics is all appealing to all of the senses. Like, oh my gosh, where do you start? Well, just start thinking about, maybe even as a team, you could brainstorm. What do you think is the plastic knife? What do you think is the paper plate? What's a good first step for us? So that would be my recommendation when it comes to aesthetic intelligence, is just thinking about, where do we start?
Can I add to the analogy? Because you've got me thinking too about, some of the techniques that, we'll bring to the front end of a design sprint. Be the the person sitting down at the table in front of the steak, not the waiter.
Yes.
So like put yourself in the customer's shoes, right? This is the empathy work that we do on the front end of any type of design. Don't look at it from the waiter's perspective, the restaurant owner that walks over and kind of looks around and says, is everything okay here? Like, be the actual customer sitting down being like, what is this plastic fork that I'm using? Because the patron or the customer, they're going to give you that Yelp review, right? Like they're going to give you that real. And the restaurant owner or the business owner in this case, or the designer in this case, maybe can't see through their own lens of perfection, if you will. So deep empathy work, I'd say, is a great starting point for aesthetic intelligence as well, too.
100%. And not being afraid of those bad, quote unquote, bad reviews, or if you have a customer has a conflict, try not to think of it as a negative thing. Like, this is an opportunity for you to gain a perspective that you weren't privy to beforehand. And maybe you didn't recognize it was a folding plastic chair. But this person recognized it for you. So think about it as they're doing your market research for you.
Yep. I love that. Onto the EQ side, to kind of put a bow on that. And I want to ask more specific questions on this. You said earlier, Michaela, that it wasn't until you developed a deeper sense of yourself that your career took off. What was maybe like the one or two like really tactical, tangible thing or things that you did to really focus on developing a sense of EQ that maybe you didn't have a couple of years ago?
I think it would be the mindset that one thing is not the answer. I thought going to therapy was the only thing. And what I realized was that growth is often more of a puzzle. And if you think about a puzzle, it's multiple pieces. And so adding for me, like growing in my own self-awareness and even healing after some really difficult life transitions, it was therapy and a life coach, journaling and meditation. And like, those were the 4 puzzle pieces for me that really accelerated my growth in that area. So I think that would be the first thing of it's a puzzle full of pieces. And so it's not one thing, it's not one book, it's not one conference that's going to be the answer for you. It's sometimes a few different pieces. So having that mindset going in, I think, takes away some of the frustration of it, and that every puzzle is going to look a little bit different. What has worked for me might not work for you. We're all unique.
And there is no book, no program that's going to give you your puzzle pieces.
Right.
And at the same time, I'm always telling people, don't shame yourself for wanting to explore what those puzzle pieces are. Right. Because like, I think so many times we feel like we've got to get that like magic formula. And oftentimes we then reach for very specific programs or very specific protocols. But like, I mean, life is a literal journey of figuring those puzzle pieces out.
Yes.
And that's the space that I want to be in. I don't know about you. And I actually do know about you, Michaela. And I know that that's the space you like to be in as well, too. And that's what really connects us. So thank you very much. Do you have a minute or two for a quick lightning round?
Absolutely.
Okay. We love the lightning round. We'll do 3 or 4 quick questions that get to know you, Michaela, a little bit better, because we just love our community. And I know particularly our team here at Thoughttium, they love you. So let's learn a little bit more. What are you reading or watching or listening to today?
Well, you know what's kind of hilarious is this is my current book that I'm reading, Aesthetics Intelligence by
nice.
Pauline Brown. That is a book I'm currently reading right now. I usually have like 2 or 3 books that I'm reading. The Deeply Formed Life is the other one. Thinking Fast and Slow is the other one that I'm reading right now. So those are my 3. I'm ashamed to say it, but I'm currently watching Bridgerton season 2.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all caught up in one of these shows. It's 1883 for me right now.
Is it?
Oh yeah. And it's good.
Is it?
Yeah. For all the Yellowstone fans out there, this is the prequel, and there's debate on which one's better, but both of them are really, really good.
I'm gonna write it down. I'm gonna watch
Yeah.
it. But yeah, that's
1883.
currently me.
Cool. It looks like you have a window in your office. Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay. If there's a point throughout the day that you catch yourself just like gazing out of the window, totally distracted, not thinking about work, what's going through your mind?
Probably a vacation with my boyfriend. Probably that.
I love that. Yes.
Or a business.
That's a good gazing.
Or another business.
Or some sort of business idea. Yeah. I love that. Would you travel to the past or the future?
Ooh. Oh, that's a really hard one because I just want to do both.
Yeah.
Probably future, because I think that my past has made me who I am today. I wouldn't change it.
That's really nice. You're one of the future. That's great. And I also love your follow-up answer to that. Like, the past is the past. So it'd be kind of cool to see what lies ahead. The only thing that's unknown. Okay. I love this one. This is like our favorite one. So think about something that you admire about yourself and fill in the blank for this sentence. If the world were more like me, it would be what?
Safer.
Ooh. I could totally see that. I mean, that's what you create with your communities. And I've heard you use that word a lot. That's a super important word, especially in the work that you're doing when you're bringing humans together to share in vulnerability.
Yes. Safe spaces, I think, are what the world is lacking right now. Yeah. And we all have, my pastor says, like, we all have unique agitations. Like, we could all walk into the same room and all of us would be agitated by something else. And your unique purpose has a lot to do with your unique agitation. So when I walk into a room and I don't feel like I can be myself, or I don't feel like I'm safe there, that bothers me. So that's part of my purpose.
I love that. Love that answer. Maybe one more.
Yep.
What is an ordinary moment in your life that brings you joy?
Probably just my morning quiet times. I love sitting and being silent and being quiet and just cuddling up in my little chair with my cup of coffee, journaling or reading. Like, that is my favorite simple moment that just changes.
And is that something you prioritize every day? Yeah, that's important.
Yep.
Easier said than done. That is for sure.
For sure. Especially when you're coming into new seasons of life.
Totally.
Whenever you're starting a new season, it's a good time to kind of figure out, okay, how can I adjust? What do I need to change? Maybe time changes, or how long the quiet time changes. But yeah, I always try to prioritize at some point in time in my day. Stillness.
Yeah. That's great. Well, thank you first and foremost for coming back to the table with us. I hope you become another just perennial guest. I knew that what we talked about today was probably going to be completely tangential to our last episode. And that's what I love about our Navigating Now community. Leaders like Michaela come to the table and demonstrate their practitionership. And I'll go back again to the way that we introduced you, Michaela. I really consider you a practitioner. I consider you someone who, treats their work like an art form or a craft. And now that we learned what aesthetic intelligence is all about, that makes a lot of sense, right? That makes a lot of sense. So here's to you, Michaela, and all the incredible, work that you're doing in the broader community, and particularly the L&D community. And we just really appreciate you.
Well, the appreciation comes right back to you. Thank you so much. You guys are such an exceptional company full of exceptional people, and it's always an honor to share space with you.
Thank you. All right. So in closing, we want to thank everybody for joining today. For those folks who didn't get a chance to watch the entire episode, you can see this and all episodes at thoughtteam.com/live. We go live every Thursday afternoon at 3:00. And next week, we've got another incredible leader at the table, Mary Dunlop. She is the founder of Forage and Roam Design Company. And we're going to be talking about the role of design in small business. And I actually think it's going to be a great connection to today's discussion about aesthetics intelligence. And,
Yes.
you know, we particularly here at Thought Team believe that design should be at the forefront of everything that we do. It should be embedded in the teams that we're building, and it should be a part of the space that we're creating for our clients and our community. And Mary knows a thing or two about that. And we're going to talk to her about all things design and the implications on your small business. So looking forward to that discussion. Thank you all so much for joining, and we will see you all next week.